Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bandhava Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bandhava Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bandhava Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bandhava Jashodanandana Bhajajanarandana Jashodanandana Bhajajanarandana Bhajajanarandana Jamuna Hiravanam Jadi Yamuna Hiravanam Jadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tiravanam Jadi Yamuna Tiravanam Jadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribhajagacharya Astutarasata Sima, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi Spaghetti. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We will go forward this morning, like we said yesterday, with a little elaboration on two very important verses, 13, 14, from chapter 9. This is taken from Bhagavat Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami, where the Damodara Lila is described in this way. The Lord's powers are described. Quote, thinking of the invisible Lord, who has no inside or outside, has nothing previous or after him, who existed in the past and will exist in the future, inside and outside of the universe, who is the universe. You spun out a little bit already? Contradictions. As her son, appearing with a human form, though he was beyond material senses, she, this is Yashoda, tied him to the mortar like a normal child with rope. I'll read it again, because these words are the Sanskrit is taken apart and looked at and hold in juxtaposition of these contradictions. So there's a dash. Thinking of the invisible Lord as her son. So invisible Lord, who has no inside or outside, who has nothing previous or after him, who existed in the past and will exist in the future, inside and outside of the universe, who is the universe. Thinking of the invisible Lord as her son, appearing with a human form, although he was beyond the material senses, she tied him to the mortar like a normal child with rope. So there's two things. There's the inconceivable potencies and the contradictions that are apparent contradictions that are within, because everything is within, Krishna, the source of everything. And then the other is his submission to the love of Mother Yasoda. So Jiva Goswami continues. The commentary says, this is his commentary, quote, binding means to use a rope to encompass so that the interior object is covered. First, holding the rope in front of an object which has a prior and subsequent time, one then surrounds the object. But this could not happen with Krishna. That is explained in this verse. Why? Krishna has no prior or subsequent time. No inside or outside. One must bind an object with something that can pervade that object. But this situation was the opposite. The universe and the rope had a prior and a later time, an inside and outside, whereas Krishna did not. Moreover, since he is non-different from the universe, one cannot bind him. He's the universe. Thinking the Lord to be a human form and her son, she bound him. Unquote. Since Krishna is the universe, because that's what the verse says, without the cause, who is Krishna, the effect, which is the universe, cannot exist. So each of these statements can be explained more elaborately, obviously, but that's where the commentary begins. We'll discuss a little. Since Krishna is the universe, the effect, which is the universe, cannot exist without the cause, who is Krishna. Another, how can he be bound with a rope which is a small portion of his Shakti of the universe, which is none different from him. A ray of light cannot burn fire. Yet Yashoda thought of Krishna as a human form, Martyalingam. The intention is this, according to the commentator. Question. How could she bind up something all-pervading? No one can bind up the universe and Goloka. Answer. He had a human form. Question. If he has a human form, how can that form be all-pervading? Answer. He is adhoksajam. That's the term that's in the verse. That is, he is that person to whom sense knowledge, aksajam, is inferior, adha, or adhoksajam. He's beyond the senses. This means he is beyond all sense knowledge inconceivable to proof by material perception. Though he has a human form, he is still all-powerful and all-pervading. Some say that because he is beyond material perception, he is invisible. But that is not accepted. Question. Since he was all-powerful, although having a human form, why did not his mother see this? Answer. She thought of him as her son. She had natural prema rasa called vatsalya for him. By her bliss, she covered the realization of his greatness. Her greatness was her lack of awareness of his powers. Or her greatness was the quality of her love that was such that she didn't recognize his powers. This greatness allowed her to bind him with rope. The experience of prema rasa was the cause of his bondage with rope. Then he quotes verse 20 from this chapter 9. Neither Brahma, nor Shiva, nor even the goddess of fortune, who is always the better half of the Supreme Lord, can obtain from the Supreme Lord, the deliverer from this material world, such mercy as received by Mother Yashoda. So she's a mercy receiver, at least, greater than all of them. They are to worship her. Those who are worshipped by many are to worship her. She's greater than them. And they do. Since it is stated that he was like a human child, prakritam yata, yata means like, prakritam yata, he was like a human child, and he was also beyond the senses, adhoksajam. He was actually the Lord, not a human form produced by Maya. For something accessible to material logic, so he's beyond material logic, but for something accessible to material logic, one may conclude, by seeing something impossible, that it is Maya or illusion. However, since Krishna by his nature is beyond material conception, it is utterly foolish to say that his human form is Maya. Then he makes reference, I did some research, about this term that he uses, Bhadava fire. There's no explanation anywhere I could find it, but he uses it. Jiva Goswami uses it here and there, not too much. One can also claim that the Bhadava fire in the ocean is illusion, though one usually doesn't see fire in water. So apparently, from the there's a word for word, like a word meaning footnote to this Bhadava fire from Bhagavat Sandarbha. Just put it cup, just the cup. Bhadava fire is a fire with a face of a horse that burns in the ocean. Don't know anything about it. A fire with the face of a horse that burns in the ocean. In the ocean. Where, what, no idea. But, so one could say the Bhadava fire is an illusion because we don't see fire in water. So it's just an illusion. So if there is something that, because it doesn't fit within the boundaries of our sense perception, it doesn't exist. Or one who thinks it exists is an illusion, and the existence of such a thing is an illusion. Whether it's the perception of such a thing that doesn't exist, or that it supposedly exists, just thinking that it exists, either way, it's an illusion. So he's arguing against Mayavadi doctrine. Now he's going to go into the contradictions that are within Krishna. Shruti says, this is Rig Veda, the Devatas are younger than the Lord. Who then can tell whence he has come into being? It's the same, Rig Veda statement is the same as Bhagavad Gita, the first few verses of chapter 10, that he's the source of everything. So how are the Devatas going to know his source if he existed before they existed? They can't. So because something existed before you existed, you can't just call it doesn't exist. Or I can't know it and therefore it's illusion. Because I'm at the center of the universe, and if I don't know it, then it can't exist. Show me God. Paragraph. It is stated that he who was bound by the ropes, that's Krishna, was he who had an all-pervading form. These two phrases are in apposition. Now that's a nice word. Apposition means juxtaposition or side by side. It's not, so his language is, I don't know what the word is in Sanskrit, but it's not contrasting, it's in apposition or in juxtaposition or side by side. There is one entity, Krishna is one entity with two things side by side within Krishna. One is equal to the other. That's two statements. They're side by side and they're equal. This is equal to that, that's equal to this. Yashoda accomplished her task because of ignorance of the all-pervading nature. And she was ignorant of the all-pervading nature because of her prema. She couldn't. Krishna didn't allow her. She didn't want to. Krishna didn't permit. His form also exists with limitation, since he is endowed with hands and feet and other organs. Thus, Krishna's form is simultaneously infinite and limited. Whoa. The mind spins because our mind is a binary processor, or but computers are binary processors that model the mind. It's either 1 or 0. It's either this or that. It can't be this and that. But Krishna's nature is everything is within him, and thus he's simultaneously infinite and limited. Then how is all this possible? The conclusion is that Krishna is the abode of hundreds of mutually contradictory Shaktis. There's the key. He's the basis, support, the reservoir, the shelter, the abode of all Shaktis that in Shaktis may be contradictory. His powers are described in Brahma Samhita. He quotes Brahma Samhita, verse 34. Pantasto koti shatavatsara sampragamyo vayoratapi manaso manipungavanam sopyasti yat prapadasinya vichincha tatve govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. The translation here is different. I worship the Supreme Lord Govinda, whose toes alone, possessing inconceivable powers, are attained only after 1 billion years by multitudes of sages who discipline the mind and breath. Different translation. Shruti says, doesn't say which, but it's just quoted by Madhvacharya, gives the Sanskrit. The Lord is not gross, is not small, is not average size, but is also of average size. He is all-pervading, but not spreading everywhere. He is the beginning with no beginning. He is not the universe and is the universe. He is with qualities and without qualities. And here's a celebrated verse that's quoted often from Nrsingatapani Upanishad. Nrsingatapani Upanishad is the source of that verse that many devotees know, Ugram Viram Mahavishnu, Jwalam Tam, etc. So, from that same, Ugram, Viram appear in this verse, Turiyam Aturiyam, Atmanam Anatmanam, Ugram Anugram, Viram Aviram, Mahantam Amahantam, Vishnum Avishnum, Jwalantam Ajwalantam, Sarvatomukam, Asarvatomukam. So there. The Lord is beyond inconceivable and conceivable, is spiritual and material, is fierce and gentle, is courageous and cowardly, is great and small. He is pervading and not pervading. He is fiery and not fiery. He has his face everywhere and nowhere. From Brahma Purana, O Lord, you are without substance, with a huge form. You are not the universe. You are the universe. You exist with contrary qualities because of your powers. That's the key. From Vishnu Dharma, I offer respects to the Lord, whose form is smaller than the smallest particle and holds unlimited universes in his stomach. Vishnu Dharma. Then, same idea, this perplexing Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text 4 and 5. We're all familiar. Mayatatamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina mat stani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavashtata. In this translation, I pervade this whole universe by my form, which is invisible to material eyes, and simultaneously all entities are within me, but I am not in them. Nachamatstani bhutani pashame yogam aishvaram bhuta brin na chabutasto mahatmana mamatma. This is probably not right. Bhuta bhavana. All the living beings are not in me. See my inconceivable power. I maintain them and protect them, but I am not in them. My mind maintains and protects them. Here, avyaktamurti na means by, quote, by a form which, by its nature, is beyond all intelligence. So that's Bhagavad Sandarbha's explanation of 10, 9, 13, 14. One more, it's very short. This is similarly Bhagavad Sandarbha, but a different section. Thus it is said, from chapter 69, this is Narada visiting Dwarka. Thus in every palace Narada saw the Lord in his same personal form, executing the proper principles of religion that purify those engaged in household affairs. He himself, Eva, not his expansion, was in all the houses. He was one form, not many forms, through expansion of one body. Shruti says, quote, one form appears as many. Or text 13 from chapter 9, na chantar na bahir yasya. He has no interior or exterior. Narada saw clearly, since Krishna has all powers to pervade everywhere. Narada did not just infer this, but experience it directly by the power given by the Lord. There are different sections of 10th canto where it's not only the 10th canto, there's other places where the apparent contradictory nature of the Supreme Lord is identified. Another nice section in Bhagavad Sandarbha is, you can look it up later if you want, 838 is the Gajendra Moksha pastime. And Gajendra offers this prayer that's similar. You're not this and you are this. You're not that and you are that. And there's 6 items in elaborate commentary in Bhagavad Sandarbha where Jiva Goswami explains each one of the 6 elaborately. And here, this is the Damodara Lila, the same principle is being explained, a little less elaborately. but enough to give us a picture. So in real distilled form, three things. Everything is within Krishna. That which is the source of everything has everything within it. Everything is within Krishna. Two, Krishna has inconceivable potencies, and it's through the agencies of these inconceivable potencies that sometimes Mother Jasoda can't bind Krishna, sometimes Mother Jasoda can bind Krishna. Some potencies are exhibited and then withdrawn, and other potencies are exhibited. And that's Krishna's capacity, and that's how Krishna does what he does. He doesn't really do anything, but he does everything through the agency of his potencies. An example that's going to come up with the Putana Lila, specifically, Jiva Goswami remarks, in a similar way, he's a little baby. Here, he's 3 years old in the Damodara Lila, but when he's, 6 days old, he's still omniscient and still has all powers. Omniscient and has all powers. So, although he's in little child, through his Yogamaya potency, or Lila Shakti potency, he brought Putana to his place. He wanted to deliver her. So, when she sees him, and he has his eyes closed, and it's a whole kind of explanation of why does he have his eyes closed. Our acharyas go to town with 16 different reasons or explanations why he had his eyes closed. But he had 2 of his potencies were being activated, called upon for service. Oh, service. One is his all-knowing potency. There's a Sanskrit phrase. His all-knowing potency was there, although he has his eyes closed, and he's in the 6-day-old form. He's still the Supreme Lord, so his all-knowing potency knows her purpose. And then another potency, his destructive potency, is exhibited. Now, his destructive potency doesn't just explode or blow up or something. It's a pastime, and he does what he does through the agency of his destructive potency. Here's another one. One of the potencies that has subpotencies is Satya Sankalpa Shakti. There's other terms that indicate the same, but Satya Sankalpa Shakti is his potencies that do everything. He just has a Sankalpa. Like, if you wanted to have a Japa Sankalpa, you may have the Sankalpa to be attentive. That would be nice. And from that Sankalpa, you just have that Sankalpa and you're attentive. Fantastic. But that's not how it works, because we're not such a Sankalpa Shakti. But Krishna is. He doesn't have to do anything. He lifted Govardhan Hill, although he didn't have to even lift Govardhan Hill. He could have levitated Govardhan Hill or eliminated Govardhan. He could have done anything. Like, in Ramchandra pastimes, when there's this concern, how are we going to cross that ocean? And Ram says, I'm just giving you some service. I don't need a bridge. With the tip of my little finger, not even the other fingers, not even the whole finger, just the tip of the little finger, I could destroy the whole of Lanka. I could destroy the whole universe. So let's do some service, guys. It's just to give you some opportunity to serve. And the serve is an opportunity for a loving exchange. That's what service is. And it can be, whatever it is. It can be pleasant, unpleasant from a worldly vantage point. But it's all pleasant or it's all unpleasant without loving service. Without loving service, what's pleasant? From a transcendentalist perspective. So back to what we just read. When Mother Yasoda was trying to bind him, although he was simultaneously all-pervasive and a tiny form, he wasn't allowing the tiny form aspect of his juxtaposition or apposition or his side-by-side existing within him. He wasn't allowing her. By two Shaktis, Satya Sankalpa Shakti and Ichha Shakti, he wanted to go get some more butter. You don't want to be bound up. And another abstraction is he wanted. The whole thing was happening because he wanted. She wouldn't have done anything without him wanting. But Satya Sankalpa Shakti and Nitya Shakti, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But when Krishna saw her perspiring and effort and flowers falling from her hair, etc., he yielded. He withdrew those two potencies and exhibited another one. Kripa Shakti. So her effort and Krishna's mercy, she bound him. So he submitted himself to her love. And he wanted to do that. And he wanted for her to be glorified for bringing him to the position of submitting to her through the power of her love. So to this day, here we are. And for the whole month, as long as time goes on, glorifying Mother Yasoda's love through the Damodara Lila. And so your question yesterday, what's the lesson for us? Come to the position of love. Just like a little conversation with your boss yesterday, or supervisor, or whatever you call him. What are you doing? We're telling a story about how God is all loving, and to such a degree that he submits himself to the love of his beloved devotees. Oh, that's a nice message. Yeah, all you need is love, right? Because he's an American guy. The Beatles song. All you need is love. Do, 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 do. Well, what's love? What do they know? But, the principle is this pastime. And so now the Siddhanta is within that which is the source of everything, it bends the mind. That is, both ones and zero at the same time, which is inconceivable to the mind. So he's adhoksaja. So that which is inconceivable doesn't exist. That's if you're a Mayavadi. And if you're a devotee, that's part of the glory of Krishna. He has unlimited potencies, and through those unlimited potencies, he exhibits whatever he wants to exhibit. And everything depends upon the regard that one has for him, and then one regards him accordingly. Like this nice pastime of Krishna entering into the wrestling arena, and according to the 11 different categories of persons that saw him that are described there, and probably more, some saw him this way, some saw him that way. And even amongst the categories, some saw him this way, he just reciprocates. And it's effortless. He doesn't get exhausted at the end of the day. And it's not just when he's entering the wrestling arena of Kamsa, it's at all times, because his potencies are unlimited and inconceivable. His nature is he's loving. And even when he deals with Putana by killing her, and she's screaming, or he's knocking over two Arjuna trees, and there's a big crash. And the residents in Vrindavan faint without even knowing exactly what it was. The sound was so loud for one muhurta. He can exhibit his potencies and withdraw his potencies and smile or cry or according to the situation for stimulating the love of his devotees. And he loves because he's loving. He loves doing all those things. He's enjoying and he's enjoying their enjoying. He's Atmarama. He's fully self-satisfied, and he steals. Or he cries. Or he runs. He's feeling fear. It is quite mysterious. And the tendency is to like, okay, what do we have in our worldly experience to help us understand this otherworldly display? And you'll never get there. You can infer, but that's not, that's how this thing ended. Brahma directly experienced what he experienced. It wasn't notional. Okay, so that's our topic for this morning. See if there's some discussion. Yeah. There's contradictions within Shaktis. There's not contradiction within Shaktis. He may exhibit this one. He may exhibit. There's all Shaktis. I guess you could say there's contradictions amongst the Shaktis. Well, there's everything. There's apparent contradiction, but there's no contradiction. That's the point. Yes. What? Does what help? Well, it's not black or white gray. It's another model, another paradigm. Neither black or white nor gray. It's the source of everything has everything within it. Say it negative. There isn't something that exists that's not within the source of everything. Or say it differently. There's two things. There's not a third thing. Prabhupada's words. There's Krishna and there's Krishnas, and there's not a third thing. And Krishnas is within Krishna. So there's a non-difference between Krishnas and Krishna. That was one of the statements. Because he's the cause of the universe. The universe doesn't exist without, the effect doesn't exist without the cause. So he's within the universe because as the cause. But he's not the universe either. He's not within everything. He's within everything, but he's not within everything. Which sounds, black, or is it black or is it white? Or is it gray? It's neither black or white or gray. It's transcendental. And transcendental isn't just, whitewashing something so it's transcendental. We can't conceive of it within the mind, but we can explain it with words. But explaining it with words is not the same as experiencing it. and we will experience according to our regard for Krishna. What Mother Jasoda experiences and what Narada Muni experiences when he visits Krishna are different. Uddhava knows Krishna as the personality of Godhead, and when he goes to Vrindavan, same as Narada, like, wow, these people are very special. They have such love for Krishna. It's not like he doesn't have love for Krishna, but they have a certain kind of love for Krishna. They see what they see. Although within him is everything, they don't see everything. They see what they see because of their love. It's not exactly black, white, gray. It's Krishna Tattva. Everything is within him, including apparent contradictions, or you can say factual contradictions. So the Bhagavatam gives us the fact, and the fact is that residents of Vrindavan don't see the fact. And that's not gray. That's their love for Krishna. So from our position, we're sadhakas. We're to see Krishna Tattva in its fullness. And as that Krishna Bhakti, from understanding Krishna Tattva, evolves, Krishna may choose, as he did with Mother Jasoda or other residents of Vrindavan, to withdraw some part of his totality from us. We may just have amnesia and just see what we see, according to how Krishna covers us with his Yogamaya. But that's up to Krishna, and it's up to, and Krishna is going to reciprocate with the intensity and type of love we have for him. And that's always the case, even today, in sadhakas. One will see the deity how one sees, one will see the name as one sees, one will see the Bhagavatam, one will see the devotees, one will see the Dham, although they're all spiritual. It's not gray. It's reciprocation according to how one submits to him. Okay? You're good? Follow up, go ahead.
It's not necessary that we understand every truth we come across intellectually.
That's correct. That's right. Now, all of those truths, the details, are there for nourishment's sake. Nourishment's sake. But supposing somebody gets their nourishment like the Brahmin who's in South India, in Sri Rangam, that's just absorbed in thinking, he's seeing what he's seeing because of his love. That's sufficient. And confirmed by Lord Chaitanya, you're the true knower of Bhagavad Gita. His stimulation was what his stimulation was. And all of these truths about Krishna are, they have their purpose. And we are encouraged to try to understand. I mean, how many times would Prabhupada say that in lectures? Try to understand. And he would explain Krishna Tattva, or Bhakti Tattva, or Jiva Tattva, or etc. It's to cleanse and to awaken. Stimulate Krishna Prema. Remove the covering and awaken the natural. That's the purpose. So, and if we don't understand or don't even have an inclination for, that's okay. Supposing somebody doesn't like reading books and they like deity worship. Supposing somebody doesn't like reading books or deity worship and they like kirtan. No, the persons that are liking kirtan, they're encouraged, read books so that you don't make a mistake and miss the center of the target. You're over there and thinking you're at the center of the target. So it's to guide us. But supposing someone has much more liking for this than that. Supposing somebody has a liking for scripture, but not so much liking for chanting. They need to do a little course correction because chanting is essential. So, but it's supposing I don't have somebody just like, I don't, all these details, I go to sleep. But our great, there's a nice story in Bhakti Ratnakar. I believe it's Bhakti Ratnakar, somewhere. Not Bhakti Ratnakar. Somewhere there's a description, maybe it's in the biography of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's life. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was trying to understand something from Chaitanya Charitamrita where the syllables in the Gopal mantra, there's something like 23 and a half syllables, and he couldn't figure it out and couldn't figure it out and couldn't figure it out. He researched and... Huh? He wrote the book, but reading the book, one of our great acharyas, if my memory serves me right, it was Vishwanath, reading his book, couldn't understand. Where is he already hear half a syllable? What does it mean? I need to understand it. And he couldn't understand it. So he was so intent in trying to understand it. You've heard this story before, right? He decided to fast until death by the side of Radhakund. And in the evening he dozed off and Radha appeared in his dream and said, no. It's in such and such dictionary. You'll find it in my library. In the library of Radhakund. And so I would like you to write a commentary. No, it wasn't. It was Brahma Gayatri. In any case, whichever Gayatri. Brahma Gayatri, I think. So he wrote a commentary on Brahma Gayatri. In the morning, woke up, went to the library. Sure enough, it was there. Radha instructed him to write a commentary, so he wrote a commentary on Gayatri Mantra. Indicating, the intensity to try to understand. And the reciprocation with Radha. And it's like, Mother Yasoda trying to bind Krishna. She couldn't bind Krishna. But her intensity was so strong, Krishna reciprocated, allowed her to bind him. So Radha appeared. Anyway, we can't imitate these personalities. It's just an indicator of when there's some strong desire to understand, Krishna opens doors. But the purpose is not intellectual or information. The purpose is nourishing our attachment for Krishna. That's the essence. Maya sakta manak partha yogam yunjan madashraya. Yes.
My question is why for the pastime, why is there exactly a 30-day celebration of it in the time of the year that it comes?
Why exactly is because our acharyas instruct us to do, and we follow our acharyas. So the next question is why is it there? This month of Damodar is the Kartik month, and there's a little detail that Kartik derivative is the moon passing through a particular nakshatra constellation, and that is it's called Krita or Kritika or something like that. And so that's the Kartik month, and it's an auspicious month. Now, why is it an auspicious month? It's some investment of potency for the Kartik month for spiritual activity. Like, why is Ekadasi special? Today's Ekadasi. Why is it special? It's invested with a special potency by Lord Vishnu. So the Kartik month is in the history of how that investment of special potency for spiritual activity in the Kartik month. I don't know that story or history, but the Kartik month is very special. And it's also called the month of Damodar because this pastime took place during that month, and therefore we know it sometimes as the month of Damodar. It's the Kartik month because of the specialness of the story. So in Hari Bhakti Vilas, it's specified. Hari Bhakti Vilas is like a how-to manual, how you do this and that and the other thing in Vaishnava life. So one of the sections of Hari Bhakti Vilas is month by month by month. It's one of the sections. What are things that Vaishnavas can do to nourish and receive spiritual benefit from that month? Certain days, how you celebrate the day, how to celebrate Janmashtami, like details and details. That's part of the book. So for the Kartik month, this is one of the things recommended. Another one of the things recommended is to worship Radharani along with Krishna, along with Damodar. That's in Hari Bhakti Vilas. So why do you do it? Because it's in Hari Bhakti Vilas. Why is it in Hari Bhakti Vilas? Because the Kartik month is very special. And with scriptural references, Sanatan Goswami indicates these are things that, according to scripture, they're recommended. And specifically, there's a commentary by Sanatan Goswami on that section of Hari Bhakti Vilas on what you do during Kartik. And he even gives a commentary. Last evening and before that, we read someone's commentary. He gives a commentary from his own book on the Damodarastaka prayers by Satyavrata Muni. How are we supposed to understand it? So, but your question is why, not what or how, but why? Because it's a special month, invested with potencies by the Supreme Lord, and this is a special activity recommended in the scriptures to do. So we do. And derive spiritual benefit. Is that all right? Okay. Anything else? Anything online?
Yes, very much. Two questions. One is we hear that in Bhakti Yoga, the means and the end are the same. How does this reconcile with the fact that as a sadhana, we hear many descriptions, like this morning we talked about inspiring the awe and reverence, whereas where our train is headed towards aspiring for the humble service of the residents of Vrindavan, who serve Krishna as the impure love, devoid of all conceptions.
It's a stage of bhakti. I mentioned it. I'll say it again in response to your wife's question or comment. Within Krishna's everything, there are these two features. And as sadhakas, we are enjoined, this is the why, we are enjoined to understand Krishna Tattva. And to understand Krishna Tattva, he has everything. It has this majestic or all-pervading, etc., feature. And within Krishna is also the sweetness feature, and that's Krishna. He's all-pervading and he's tiny. He has a human-like form. We say human-like, but exactly the other way around. We have a form like his. He has his human-like form, and he's all-pervading at the same time. So we're encouraged to understand Krishna Tattva. So that's what we do, because we're encouraged that to get Krishna, to know Krishna Tattva, no more birth. And as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are specifically encouraged to understand the relative or the different types of love that exist in the spiritual realm, the most exalted of which is the Braja. So we're doing both, understanding Krishna Tattva and giving special appreciation to the residents of Vrindavan. That's part of our sadhana. And that sadhana will take us, if we follow carefully and receive Krishna's mercy. It's not a vending machine. It's devotional process where that stage we are hoping against hope. Krishna will be merciful and bring us to that position of loving him as the residents of Vrindavan love him. We start with sadhana. We don't, for example, we don't worship the deity treating Krishna as a little baby or as our playmate or as our beloved. We don't do that. That stage may come, but we start as sadhakas are supposed to start. That's why we start where we are. And try to cultivate an understanding of Krishna Tattva while we're doing that. Yes?
Second is, as all living entities are part and parcels of Krishna, do we have any minute quantity of Satya Sankalpa?
Yeah. We have some minute free will, not unlimited free will. We can strive. Anything else? Because otherwise we're finished for this morning.
That you want to know about Satyavrata Muni?
Yeah. You found out?
Actually, I did research. I couldn't find on database.
Yeah.
But you don't want to hear if it is not from other source. Like I think it's Gaudiya Math. I did try to Google it. So I can forward you the link. He says basically Satyavrata Muni is same as Satyavrata King. He was a Brahmajnani and through serving Lord while devastation happened, Pradaya, he became Premi Bhakta. I can forward you the link, but it's not from
Okay, forward me the link. And I'll see what, I'll from this discussion, thank you for that. From this discussion of Shubha Vilas, writing in a book, something that's loka, pramana, that it's Radharani that came, and only when she supplied the rope could Mother Jasoda bind Krishna, and otherwise that's the only reason. So I'm going to put together a little statement, my understanding of what Loka Pramana is and how it fits into Tattva Sandarbha. According to Tattva Sandarbha, there are 10 possible sources of knowing things. And one of them, I forget the Sanskrit word, but it means something that's just commonly accepted. And I think it's Gopi Pranadhana's commentary that gives the example of the Red Fort in Delhi. There's no firm evidence that says the Red Fort in Delhi was where the Pandavas resided. But over the years and years and years and centuries or whatever, people have come to accept it. So whether it is or isn't you can't. But it's a certain kind of evidence by which people know things. The Red Fort is the Pandavas. It's not so. It doesn't carry. You can dismiss it or you can accept it. But it's a way by which people know things. Now, so in this little document I'm going to put together, yesterday I wrote, and Shivaram Maharaj replied the same day, because he's very well read. This Gopastami Lila of Subal going to meet Radha, and they're changing clothes, and Radha carrying a calf dressed like Subal. I asked him, is there any scriptural evidence? And his reply was very clear. I've never come across anything where it says from the Acharyas, which is another kind of pramana, or any scripture anywhere that this is a pastime that's described. However, in the Gaudiya line, it's commonly accepted, and therefore it falls in the category of Loka Pramana. But this other thing of Radharani and the rope is not commonly accepted. Somebody somewhere wrote it or said it or something or other, and somebody repeated it, and the next thing you know, it's one of the lore of the Hare Krishna movement. It's not what's in the Bhagavatam. It's not what's in the commentaries on the Bhagavatam. There's no mention of Radharani supplying rope and therefore Mother Jasoda could bind. So it's in another category. And some people may like to tell the story. But it certainly doesn't have the same strength of Subal going to see Radharani to relieve Krishna of his anxiety, not seeing Radha. And it certainly doesn't have the same strength as what our acharyas say in explaining things. Just like the text that we read, Jiva Goswami's Bhagavad Sandarbha. That's superlatively authoritative for the followers of Lord Chaitanya. Now, other sampradayas have their authorities which they adhere to. And we're faithful to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's principal associates, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami. We're very faithful to them. And something else just doesn't have the same weight, and there's some things that have less weight than that. I think I'll end with that little comment. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.